Hello, everybody. Welcome to Latter-day Struggles. This is your host, Valerie, and I am so excited to be back with you here again today because this is the beginning of a new series. And if you're listening to this, you're my people. You are my Latter-day Struggles 2.0 deep dive seekers. You are interested in the deepening of your faith journey. And if you're listening to this, it's very likely that you've been through the valley of the shadow in terms of your own faith crisis, somehow or other connected to the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. And maybe you're through with some of the worst disorientation around this part of your journey and you're hungry for more. You're wanting to know, okay, I've been through the disorientation of having to sort of die in some ways to your earlier understanding of spirituality, but maybe you're wondering, okay, where do I go now? Because for so many of us who are deeply spiritual, our Latter-day Saint upbringing is actually what put us on the path to the faith crisis. And sometimes we don't exactly know where to go after we have negotiated some of the more complicated details of that early part of the faith journey. And for that reason, I have committed a track or a half of this podcast to you and to me, because this is me on this faith journey as well, where I am interested in better understanding the depth and the breadth and the richness of spirituality that maybe I didn't exactly find or was not exposed to me when I was in my earlier stage faith. So we are going to be jumping more deeply into each and every one of these 5 tenets of radical wholeness. If you are deeper in your Latter-day Saint or connected spiritual journey and you're wanting more depth and breadth to your expanding spirituality, if you're wanting more access to your true self, if you're wanting to have firsthand experiences, knowing of your own divinity, it is through these 5 tenets that you can find some, I think, rich and deepening opportunities. Waking up, growing up. Let me quickly define. Waking up is the spiritual awakening that happens through mindfulness and meditation. Growing up is sort of the most broad definition of psychological and emotional maturity work. Opening up is about recognizing that we all develop unevenly and that we have lines of intelligence. And working on these lines of intelligence helps us with our overall maturity. Showing up is about specific aspects of each and every situation and individual in existence and how there are 4 perspectives that we can learn how to see more clearly so that we can have more compassion on ourselves and others. And then finally, cleaning up, which is compassionately addressing our own shadows. That brings us to a place where we are the most present and most capable of doing depth spirituality work. So let's jump into the series itself. I'm calling this series Finding Radical Wholeness, and I give all the credit to these foundational ideas to my favorite philosopher, Ken Wilber, and this comes actually from his most recent book called Finding Radical Wholeness. And I'm really lucky, I feel really lucky, I should say, that even though he's nearly 80 and he's been writing books for almost, I think it's been 55 years or something like that, he recently did a book club where anyone who wanted to come could come, and we studied Finding Radical Wholeness together as a world community. And it was amazing how many people from all over the world who care a lot about the depth journey showed up here. And one of the things that I really think is, there's so many things that I've loved about his work, but Ken Wilber is one of the philosophers who can, I think, very, very accurately describe the failure of Western Christianity, which isn't, of course, just a Mormon problem, but he is able to sort of make sense of why it is that for many people, Western early stage faith, Christianity that sort of worships a white male God isn't working for a lot of people. And he creates a bridge for us to help us recognize if this is who we are, how we can maintain our longings towards a spiritual life while letting go of that early Western Christian mythic God figure and a lot of the things that go with it. So, to better help myself and you understand what personal psychology is, it's let's first define it. Trans means beyond, and personal means the individual ego or self. So, transpersonal psychology establishes the validity that we are something as human beings that goes beyond the separate self or the ego. It explores a fuller spectrum of human consciousness. It acknowledges the importance of ordinary identity, but it also moves into the importance of understanding that there is within each of us the potential for spiritual transcendence and deep interconnectedness with things and experiences and people even beyond this world and this life. It acknowledges that human beings are, first and foremost, spiritual beings. And as I mentioned a few minutes ago, much of Western psychology actually pathologizes these beyond ego experiences. Much of what we have learned or picked up on is that if something happens with regards to connection with something beyond the ego or beyond the self, that is even like delusional or something like that. Growing up is a beautiful concept because fundamentally we build upon former versions of ourselves. And so transcendence and inclusion is a big piece of this growing up tenet. Each and every one of us has to do the necessary developmental experiences or have the necessary developmental experiences of growing up before we can move on to the next stage. And so how far each and every one of us goes from the perspective of developmental stages is different for every human being. The fundamental value of this tenet, growing up, is that as we grow up, we can take more and more ownership of ourselves, and our psychological growth becomes something that we can focus on. And cleaning up. I left cleaning up for the very end because cleaning up talks about the importance of doing shadow work. Each and every one of these, as you can see, they kind of build on each other, or they are at very least related to each other. And cleaning up is about consistently and compassionately engaging with our own wounds. And the reason why is because if we don't engage with our own wounds, which all of us have them, it really gets in the way of our being able to focus on and engage with all of the other aspects of our growth and development. So if I am not able to do, if I choose not to do shadow work, oftentimes what happens is those shadows actually have quite a bit of psychic power over me, and energetically it really wears me out. And so if I am not compassionately confronting and working through my own shadow material, it will impact my ability to wake up, to grow up, to open up, and to show up. So we are going to be jumping more deeply into each and every one of these 5 tenets of radical wholeness. If you are deeper in your Latter-day Saint or connected spiritual journey and you're wanting more depth and breadth to your expanding spirituality, if you're wanting more access to your true self, if you're wanting to have firsthand experiences, knowing of your own divinity, it is through these 5 tenets that you can find some, I think, rich and deepening opportunities. Waking up, growing up. Let me quickly define. Waking up is the spiritual awakening that happens through mindfulness and meditation. Growing up is sort of the most broad definition of psychological and emotional maturity work. Opening up is about recognizing that we all develop unevenly and that we have lines of intelligence. And working on these lines of intelligence helps us helps us with our overall maturity. Showing up is about specific aspects of each and every situation and individual in existence, and how there are four perspectives that we can learn how to see more clearly so that we can have more compassion on ourselves and others. And then finally, cleaning up, which is compassionately addressing our own shadows. That brings us to a place where we are the most present and most capable of doing depth spirituality work. I could not be more grateful for each and every one of you for being here, for being my people. If you have not already thought about jumping into the live fellowship and you want to deep dive, have conversations about these podcast topics, I want to meet you. I want to see you there. And if you're somebody who's already done one of my growth and processing groups and you still want community, I still want you in my community. So don't hesitate if this is right for you. We'll see you next time. Bye-bye.
Thank you for listening to Latter-day Struggles. If this podcast has supported your faith journey, we invite you to explore the many ways you can continue your healing and growth with us. On our website, you'll find support and processing groups, marriage and parenting courses, and free resources to support where you are in your faith journey. You can also join Valerie in the live fellowship gatherings throughout the year, where we connect, process the podcast, and build meaningful friendships with others on similar paths. If cost has ever been a barrier, we offer podcast scholarships funded by listener donations. To explore all of these offerings, visit the link in today's show notes or go to latterdaystruggles.com. And if this podcast has been meaningful to you, leaving a 5-star review is one of the most powerful ways to help others find this work. Latter-day Struggles is proud to be part of the Dialogue Podcast Network.
Dialogue Podcast Network.